She targeted more than a dozen journalists and online creators, igniting a free speech firestorm. We can now reveal that we were among those targeted by Blake Lively. Yes, she actually tried to get the confidential and proprietary materials my team and I used for any and all stories about her.
Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, once co-stars in It Ends With Us, are now locked in a brutal legal war filled with shocking claims, bitter accusations, and explosive fallout. What started as a simple film project has spiraled into subpoenas, celebrity betrayals, and accusations that could shatter reputations forever. Blake says Baldoni harassed her and tried to tear her down. Baldoni insists she's the real bully, using lawsuits, power, and influence to silence anyone who dares to criticize her. From podcasters being dragged into court, to old stories of on-set cruelty, to whispers that even Taylor Swift has distanced herself, this case has become one of the most dramatic celebrity battles in years. But the deeper you look, the stranger it gets. Because this isn't just about one lawsuit. It's about power, fame, and what happens when a Hollywood star will do anything to protect their image. At the center of this firestorm is the lawsuit itself. Blake Lively, the glamorous Hollywood star, best known for Gossip Girl and blockbuster rom-coms, shocked fans when she accused Justin Baldoni, her co-star and the director of It Ends With Us, of harassment and disparagement. According to Blake, Baldoni crossed lines on set and then tried to smear her when the movie faced criticism. But Baldoni didn't just deny the allegations, he went on the attack. In his legal response, he described Lively as a bully, someone who weaponized her fame and her influence to blame him for the film's struggles. He argued that she wasn't the victim, she was the one creating chaos behind the scenes and then pointing the finger at him when the press coverage turned negative. It was an explosive turn. Fans who had been eagerly waiting for the movie adaptation of Colleen Hoover's best-selling novel suddenly found themselves watching a different drama play out, one with higher stakes than anything in the script. Because this wasn't about a fictional love story anymore. This was about two powerful Hollywood players fighting for their reputations in front of the world. And the timing couldn't have been worse. It Ends With Us had been one of the most anticipated films of the summer. Instead, the rollout was overshadowed by whispers of feuds, hostile press tours, and behind-the-scenes sabotage. Baldoni accused Lively of generating the very negative headlines she was now blaming him for. She accused him of trying to destroy her credibility to protect his own career. From the outside, it looked like a bitter standoff with no clear winner. But then, Blake made her next move, and it shocked everyone. If the lawsuit wasn't dramatic enough, Blake Lively's next move pushed the feud into uncharted territory. In July, reports revealed that she had begun issuing subpoenas, not just to Baldoni's team, but to journalists, podcasters, and digital commentators who most people had never heard of. Blake's legal team went after more than a dozen voices. The demand? Confidential records, private communications, and materials connected to any stories or coverage about her. To her critics, it looked like an attempt to muzzle free speech. A powerful actress with Hollywood money and lawyers trying to silence the people who didn't like her. Almost overnight, she was accused of launching a legal intimidation campaign. Content creators spoke out, saying they felt bullied and harassed simply for giving their opinions. Some even admitted they didn't have the resources to fight back against a celebrity powerhouse backed by Ryan Reynolds' fortune and Hollywood's top attorneys. The controversy sparked a firestorm. Was Blake Lively standing up for her reputation, or was she using her influence to punish her critics? Either way, the subpoenas only fueled the backlash. Instead of quieting the noise, the move dragged even more attention to her feud with Baldoni and opened the door for people to dig into her past behavior. And that's when the internet began resurfacing clips and stories from years earlier, moments that painted a very different picture of Blake Lively than the polished Hollywood sweetheart she'd built her brand on. The first crack in the perfect image came from an awkward interview clip that spread like wildfire online. In the middle of her film's press tour, a reporter congratulated Blake on her obvious pregnancy bump, a routine, almost lighthearted comment. But instead of smiling it off, Blake snapped back, accusing the journalist of sexism for bringing up her appearance. The exchange left viewers stunned. Here was a reporter making a harmless observation, suddenly being scolded in front of cameras. Many felt Blake wasn't standing up for women. She was lashing out, turning an innocent comment into a public shaming. The clip went viral, feeding into a growing narrative that Blake was difficult, thin-skinned, and combative during press events. Critics pointed out the irony. Blake herself often showcases her fashion choices and pregnancy updates on social media. Yet when asked about them by a journalist, she seemed to take offense. To many, it looked less like empowerment and more like bullying, using her platform to humiliate someone with far less power. The video reignited debates about her behavior during promo tours. Was Blake really the poised, relatable actress she projected online? Or was she, as Baldoni's legal filings suggested, a star who created her own negative press by alienating those around her? What had started as a legal feud was quickly morphing into a reputation crisis, and the deeper people dug, the more troubling stories they found. Once the press tour clip spread, fans and critics alike began revisiting Blake Lively's earlier controversies, incidents that many had either forgotten or never known about. One of the most damaging resurfaced stories dated back to her lifestyle platform, Preserve. In 2014, Blake launched the site as a competitor to Gwyneth Paltrow's Goop, branding it as a celebration of American culture and craftsmanship. But almost immediately, the project was called out for being tone-deaf. The site featured heavily stylized Southern plantation imagery with romanticized references that critics said ignored the brutal history of slavery tied to those very plantations. The backlash was swift. Writers accused Blake of cultural insensitivity, arguing she was using the aesthetics of oppression as a trendy backdrop for luxury products. Though she eventually shut down Preserve, the criticism lingered as a stain on her otherwise glossy Hollywood image. Now, with her feud against Baldoni front and center, that controversy was being dragged back into the spotlight. Social media posts reminded everyone of the plantation chic scandal, framing it as proof that Blake had a history of brushing off criticism until it spiraled out of control. And just when people thought they had heard it all, another resurfaced controversy pushed her further into the fire. For years, Blake Lively was seen as part of Taylor Swift's tight inner circle, the elite squad of friends that included Selena Gomez, Gigi Hadid, and Ryan Reynolds. The friendship was a cornerstone of her image, often showcased at award shows, parties, and even on social media, where Taylor playfully included Blake's children in her songs. But by mid-2024, fans started speculating that something had changed. When Taylor dropped her latest album, listeners noticed something glaring. Blake and Ryan weren't mentioned in the liner notes, despite years of playful nods. At Taylor's high-profile gatherings, Blake seemed to be missing. And when the feud with Baldoni exploded, Taylor stayed silent, an unusual move for a star known to fiercely support her friends. Whispers began spreading online that Taylor had quietly distanced herself. Some fans suggested she didn't want to get dragged into Blake's lawsuits and controversies. Others claimed Taylor's carefully crafted brand simply couldn't risk being tied to what looked like a public relations disaster. Whether the friendship had truly cooled or not, the speculation alone hurt Blake. Losing the appearance of Taylor Swift's public support added fuel to the narrative that Hollywood itself was stepping back from her. The woman who once looked untouchable now seemed isolated, her circle shrinking as her legal fight escalated. And Baldoni? He was capitalizing on every crack in her image. Justin Baldoni didn't stay quiet while Blake Lively's legal maneuvers dominated headlines. In court filings and interviews, he painted a picture of a star who weaponized the law and the Me Too movement to try to control every aspect of It Ends With Us. According to Baldoni, Blake fabricated claims of harassment to seize control over the movie, from the editing to wardrobe choices to the script itself. He pointed to examples that seemed almost too bizarre to be true. She alleged that a co-producer watched her breastfeed against her will and claimed that certain actors were given roles just to observe her in vulnerable moments. But evidence told a different story. Texts and on-set records revealed that Blake had invited Baldoni and his team into her trailer, and that wardrobe adjustments and filming setups always respected her comfort. The contrast was stark. Baldoni's counterclaims suggested that Blake was willing to manipulate the truth, leveraging her fame and access to legal resources to intimidate and dominate. Where she painted herself as the victim, he argued she was the aggressor, using her star power to try to silence anyone who disagreed. As the feud escalated, comparisons to other Hollywood power struggles became unavoidable. Observers noted parallels with Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, who famously fought the press and court to protect their image. Like them, Blake seemed willing to deploy wealth, connections, and aggressive legal teams to silence criticism. But the stakes in this case were even more personal. Baldoni and others argued that she was targeting smaller creators, journalists, podcasters, assistants, people with fewer resources and far less influence. While she could afford the most expensive lawyers in Los Angeles, many of those caught in her subpoena storm had no defense. This imbalance raised important questions about celebrity accountability. How far can power and money shield stars from consequences? And at what point does defending your reputation cross into harassment? Meanwhile, fans and critics dissected every social media post, every public appearance, every clip from press corps and older sets. The narrative was clear. Blake Lively, once untouchable, was now under intense scrutiny. The feud with Baldoni had become a prism through which the public examined not just a single movie, but the broader culture of celebrity entitlement and influence. In Hollywood, fame is power, but this case reminded everyone that power comes with scrutiny, and the world was watching every move, every subpoena, every accusation, every counterattack. In the end, the Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni feud isn't just about one movie or one press tour. It's a story about power, influence, and the high stakes of celebrity culture. Lawsuits, subpoenas, resurfaced controversies, and fractured friendships have all become part of a saga that has Hollywood and fans talking. Blake's legal strategy may have been bold, but it came at a cost. Allegations of bullying, old PR scandals, and public criticism have followed her every step, turning what should have been a promotional tour for a movie into a reputation battle on a global stage. Meanwhile, Baldoni has used every piece of evidence to defend himself and challenge her claims, exposing inconsistencies and highlighting a pattern of controlling behavior. The ripple effects are still being felt. Friends may be distancing themselves, fans are questioning the woman behind the star, and smaller creators are left navigating the fallout of her subpoenas. It's a stark reminder that in Hollywood, fame can protect you, but it can also magnify your every misstep. And while the courts will ultimately decide the legal outcome, the public has already made their judgment. This feud has revealed the human side of celebrity, complete with flaws, disputes, and the battles we rarely see behind the glitz and glamour. One thing is certain, this story isn't over. With new evidence, testimonies, and courtroom filings expected to emerge, the Blake Lively versus Baldoni saga promises more drama, more revelations, and more questions about power, accountability, and the lengths people will go to protect their reputation. In Hollywood, everyone has a role, but sometimes the biggest drama unfolds off-screen.